generation rockers saying, you know, that's too tame, or that's like our mom's music. And that's where the frenetic energy of punk came from. At the same time, we took the hottest parts out of records that already existed and kind of pumped them up. And you know what I mean, that adrenaline that created hip-hop up in the Bronx.
In '77, we went to this big rap show in the South Bronx. It was completely a new thing to me. There was no separation between the audience and the stage. Everybody was just, you know, running on stage and doing a few lines and jumping back into the crowd. It was just like so exciting. It was great.
And I was the first to invite the punk rockers, the white people, who wasn't nervous to come to a black Latino area and party with the people. Most people thought it was going to be chaos, racism, fights and everything. When we put that music on, the music took control and became universal, and everybody just partied like we was partying on the mothership. '77 is when hip-hop started coming into its own. Because at that time, you used to have the DJs battles in the parks where both groups would play at the same time. And it'd be like a sound clash, and whoever had the loudest system would overrule.
In '77, you know, Wiz, he goes and he starts, you know, and sets up a battle against Bambaataa. Now, it wasn't me, because Wiz is always the one like, yo, let's go battle them, yo. Let's go get them. Let's go battle them.
Back in those days when you DJ'd, you know, there was a lot of player hate. There was a lot of animosity, you know what I mean? And they wanted to get at you, and they would talk a lot of trash, you know what I mean? There was a lot of trash talking back in those days. I mean, that's part of hip-hop, too, you know what I mean?
We come in there with the most equipment that we could find, piece together, you know what I mean? Odds and ends, speakers, you know, from here and there and everything, and we think we're ready. We go in there. So I have the nerve to put on We Will Rock You by Queen. So I put it on, and it comes on, and it's like, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha. Audio, make me noise, playing in the trees, you know what I mean? I'm here like Mr. Biggs, who was an MC for Bambaataa, got on the mic and bellowed, Casanova, turn up your system. We can't hear you. I'm like, okay, try to crank it up. Said, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha, doom, doom, cha. He was like, Casanova, we still can't hear you. This is what it sound like. Put on the same record. Boom, boom, cha, boom, boom, cha, boom, boom. Yo, we just like, okay, grab the wires. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's start unplugging shit. Like, yo, let's get out. Oh, my God. It was, that was like one of the most humiliating things, but it was another one of those life lessons, man, and another thing that we survived in '77. You know what I mean? That could, another crew or another group, that would have been the end of them. You would have never heard of them again. They was done. They would have been done. But I pop up like toast, man.
Columbia University co-ed Virginia Voskerichian was gunned down in March.
The killer police are looking for is called the .44 caliber killer because of the weapon he has used.
A modern version of the old .44 caliber pistol used in the days of the Old West.
I remember driving around, you know, with my friends trying to look for this guy because everybody wanted to catch this guy. I mean, everybody was looking for him. We didn't know what we were looking for, but I knew 3 people who got shot. I knew somebody who died, and I know 2 people got shot.
People were in certain areas afraid to be out too late and given, and you know, self-imposed curfews and people carrying weapons who never carried weapons before.
For New Yorkers, it has been heart-wrenching watching as the city copes with crisis after crisis.
I know what it is to walk around in my childhood without any problems and happy-go-lucky and go where I want, but no longer like that. You have to look over your shoulder, and I find people, when you're walking, people just look over their shoulder.
With a serial killer on the loose, crime has become a central issue in the campaign. A recent poll shows that Congressman Ed Koch and his tough stance on crime has moved ahead, while former frontrunner Bella Abzug has dropped to a distant third.
The city was in the dumps. It needed law and order. And Bella was more about, come on, let's be nice. And Koch was more about, if he comes into your neighborhood, I'll smash that son of a bitch. That was an era of survive and enjoy yourself. And Studio 54 was this unbelievable island where nothing mattered other than feeling good.
The person that helped start Studio 54, a woman named Carmen DeLessio, was originally a Loftman. Then she went to Steve Rubel and Ian Schrager, who were actually doing a party at a place called the Enchanted Gardens in Queens.
When they saw the project of the studio and I, with my enthusiasm, described what I envisioned, they got enthusiastic and they decided to go for it.
77 was the year that everybody wanted to learn to disco dance. They wanted to learn to do the hustle. They wanted to get into Studio 54. They wanted to be part of that glamour.
The Studio 54 was bigger than most clubs. It was built inside a theater, so it had a balcony, it had the bridge over the dance floor that would come out on rollers, and so there was people dancing on the dance floor and over the dance floor, and there were lights above the dance floor that would come down into the dance floor.
And it had a Coke spoon swinging into the nose of a half moon. It was like part of the design of the club.
Any idea that would go through my mind to make it more spectacular, they would go for. When Bianca Jagger celebrated the birthday, we conceived the idea of Lady Godiva on a white horse. So we had this girl stark naked on a white horse with her gold braids all the way to the floor. And then Bianca got so enthusiastic about this that she just jumped on top of the horse and went around the dance floor. This grabbed the attention of all the photographers, and before we knew it, it was all over the world.
You never knew who you were going to see in the basement of Studio 54. I remember once, I hadn't really paid that much attention to the person that was sitting to my left. And the gentleman next to her tapped her on the arm and turned to her and handed her a joint. She took it from him, very expertly, I might add. And when she handed it to me, I looked in her eyes, and I realized that I'm looking to the eyes of Lillian Carter, the mother of the President of the United States of America.
I went there, yes. It was just bizarre. And inside were underage girls dancing in men's tailored shirts without anything else, and lots of very decadent-looking people doing decadent things.
It had youth, booze, drugs, and hormones all combined. I definitely saw people going at it up in them balconies, I tell you.
Sex was everywhere on any given evening. It was absolutely appropriate to go into the ladies' room and have sex with someone in one of the stalls or do drugs with them.
It's fabulous to be young in a moment in which you want to be irreverent and irresponsible and daring, and there are no consequences.
A lot of clubs in New York had a lot of what was going on at 54. It was just Studio 4 sort of 54 made it really popular, and it sort of introduced it to the masses.
It was the right time, it was the right moment, and we created magic.
We were dead set against disco at Punk magazine. In fact, John Holmstrom wrote Death to Disco in the first editorial of Punk magazine. But now I listen to disco and it doesn't sound that bad. You know, it's like, ooh, how do you like it? How do you like it? Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was a child who wanted all of so wild.
Well, 1977 was definitely a watershed year for me personally. We recorded Blank Generation in 1977. That was really thrilling, you know, doing that, making that record, and none of us had ever been in a recording studio before. So we were on top of the world, you know, and we had a real big following at CBGB's, and, you know, the stuff was starting to break around the world.
I think Richard Hell, I think he wanted to be successful. I think he wanted to be a rock star. When I first heard Blank Generation, I thought that that was going to be the anthem for the generation. And I remember when my daughter was born, all that was going through my mind was, I was saying, let me out of here. It's such a gamble when you get a face.
I was saying, let me out of here before I was even born. It's such a gamble when you get a face. It's fascinating to observe what the mirror does, but when I died for the wall and I set a place, I belong to the blank generation.
When punk started, A&R people, the record labels, would say, these people can't play. What a bunch of junk. All of a sudden, a song starts selling in Australia, and it was a song called In the Flesh. That was the tip-off that there was something happening.
And the story was that they played it by mistake, thinking they were playing the A side of the single. So needless to say, they weren't ready for punk rock or what we were doing, which was very raw compared to the one song that they had heard.
The song got to #1 in Australia, which at that time might as well have been the moon to most Americans, but it was #1 somewhere. And if you could be #1 somewhere, you could be #1 anywhere.
Suddenly we were shuttled around the world, and Debbie's image was everywhere, and most people saw what she looked like before they heard the music. And when we first went to England, everybody just went physically nuts at our shows. It was so exciting.
And all of a sudden, everybody wanted to sign punk bands.